So guys, apologies for the delay. We have one more person. I just saw that she joined. Denise, can you hear us? Or better yet, can you just unmute so I can hear you because I had to promote you in?
I'm here. Hello. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, so we have all the members who will be present tonight. So I will call the meeting to order. And thank you, Charlene. It is September 23rd, 7:07 p.m. And this is the Economic Development Commission meeting. We will also have the Marijuana Retailer Subcommittee in a bit here too. Present from the EDC are myself, Renee Deli, Laura Parker, Sandy Olerhead, Michael Toole, and Denise Luciano. Anthony Kalatacek and Mike Massini will not be able to join tonight. So on the agenda, there you guys will see a bunch of folks in front of you on the screen. We had the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board met last Thursday and had a presentation from El Nilam in respect to an amendment to the original TIF agreement. I did just send the TIF agreement out. I apologize, it was late. I completely forgot about it, to be honest. And then, but I asked Brian or Brian or whomever is going to speak on your behalf, just to go through and give us some background on this, and then what your proposal is right now. And just for the purpose of the EDC, we asked for this to come back to us, so we kind of changed their schedule a little bit so that we go through the process that we spoke about a few weeks back with Mike and Paul in respect to TIFs going through the Economic Development Commission, the Finance Committee, and then to the Select Board. So that's why they're here tonight, why we put them on the schedule, just so that they can get in front of the Finance Committee and the Select Board in time for the fall town meeting. Okay, so guys, I'll turn it over to you. I'm not sure who's going to speak first.
I can sort of set the background, and then, Al, Corey, and Rob from Al Nilam can chime in. But I'm with CBRE, a real estate advisor to Al Nilam, and work with them originally with the town to land on Commerce Drive and get the project done as it is. And we also work with the town on the TIF. And that was in 2015 where the TIF was approved. My understanding, and I'm not in the trenches day to day like Corey and the team are, but the relationship between the town and the company has been, really strong. And based on what I know of Al Nilam, I wouldn't expect anything less. When the TIF is voted and it is approved, the process requires that we estimate jobs and investment and sort of outline the bones of the project, so we all know what to expect. As time has gone and the project has developed, the jobs and investment of this project have taken a different profile than we initially intended, in that the certificate of occupancy happened later than we expected. The job numbers are lower than we expected, though they're expected to climb closer to what the original target of 150 jobs was. The investment in the facility has far outstripped what was committed by Al Nilam originally in the $100 to $150 million number. So, investment is much higher, which has led to a higher assessed value and a higher tax base for the town. The job count is lower and has been slower to materialize than we originally anticipated. And the request is that we work together to document an amendment to the TIF that just acknowledges the higher investment and the lower job creation to date, with the future target job creation number revised. So that's the request, and Al and the team can give you some more background because I don't know that we're all here when we originally conceived the TIF and the project. And then, please feel free to ask some questions. And the reason I like to do this is in the interest of transparency. It just seems to make sense to look at the project as it is and not as it was envisioned before a shovel ever hit the ground. Now, 5 years later, and actually revise the document to what is in the ground, which is higher investment and the reality of what we think the jobs will be in the future. So that's the thought.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And for anyone, I could actually share a picture of the place too, if anyone hasn't driven down Commerce, but a little bit of background. My name's Al Boyle. My title is Senior Vice President of Technical Operations and Quality. Essentially, it's my team's responsibility to both build and then operate the facility. Our company is 17 years old. We just, in the past 2 years, had our first 2 drugs approved on Patro and Givlaari. And we're based on what's called RNA interference, a technology that the analogy could be, instead of using a sponge to sop up water, we turn off the faucet. And it's a way of turning off a bad pathway or process to help treat diseases. And that's the mechanism by which we work. We've had great success, and it's because of that platform modality, we saw the need to invest very early on in our lifetime for internal manufacturing capacity, and that's why we are neighbors and we love being in Norton. So as Brian pointed out, the original trajectory anticipated from the TIF, I think it's 5 years, greater than 150 jobs and 100 to 150 million. We've had various things go on in the business that have driven higher investment, but also then made us modulate our hiring trajectory. And so, that's where we're at currently. And to Brian's point, we've had nothing but wonderful relationships with the town. It's been fantastic. We're very happy about the choice to one for you to let us in as neighbors and for us to stay in the Commonwealth. And we've, again, 17 years, best places to work for the past 5 in the Boston Globe article. We've really are quite proud of our commitment back to the Commonwealth. But I will say we also have 25 sites total, and there are a number of different ex-US. We're in Japan, the Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, a number. And so we're growing quite well. And I think we've positioned Norton and the progress to enable our future success as a company for the pipeline. So hopefully that's a little bit of background on us and a little bit more behind the project itself.
And if I could add one more thing just about sort of the way a TIF works and the economics of this particular project as it relates to town and tax base. The TIF does not take away any tax base that was there before the project landed. It abates a portion of the tax base created by Alnylam based on this negotiated schedule. So being this is the EDC, maybe you're familiar with that structure, but just to be clear about that. And then, I today just looked at like the Horizon Beverage Building across the street, the Spears Distribution Center on South Washington. The assessed values for those buildings range between the mid 40s and mid 50s dollars per square foot. Just to give you a sense, the assessed value for this building in fiscal 20 was over $350, so an 8x the assessed value of a warehouse. So this is a really technical build, and it's assessed accordingly. So if, say, you take the first year of a TIF, for example, that's negotiated here, it was a 50% reduction on taxes, square foot per square foot. That's still 4x, even with the TIF, the value you would get on a square foot of warehouse space. So hopefully that gives you just a little perspective on this, the tax-based value of a project like this to the town.
So are there any questions? I don't have any because we were involved in the conversation last week, but certainly I guess, you know what I do want to ask, guys, the documents that were sent, is there a reason why the initial part, the certification is different than the actual TIF? Like in respect to both the number of full-time positions that were supposed to be created as well as the investment listed? Because I thought we talked about this briefly last week. I could be
No.
wrong.
Yeah.
So it's on the motion to certify, it's 220 full-time positions and then approximately $100 million in construction. The investment. And then in the actual TIF, it lists, I think, 100. Let me look. 100 to 200 permanent full-time jobs, and then the investment of 100 to 150 million.
Yeah, and then toward the end of the TIF, which is page 3 at the top, with it, where the company's actual obligations, it's 150 jobs, 150,000 square feet, 100 to 150 million. So the investment has stayed relatively consistent. I don't know why in the cover letter it was written that way. To be very honest, the TIF document itself is what we look at, and I think what the state measures against. And I think specifically it's that section on page 3 that has sort of the bottom line commitments, Renee, that the state is measuring. So I don't know why that first page reads that way.
Just seems odd, the inconsistency with it. So, and again, just to summarize, what you guys are looking for is, you know, the reduction in the number of permanent full-time positions that you're obligated to create as part of this TIF, and kind of as an alternate, noting that the investment is much higher than it was initially listed here as well. And is the plan to change that in the amendment too, to increase the investment from 100 million?
Yeah, the plan is to make it consistent with what we know to be the reality, which is the higher investment. And then specifically, Renee, our request based on Alnylam's forward planning is to set a target of 125 jobs by the year end 25. That's what they feel they can reasonably achieve. And so we just want to be reasonable and, you know, kind of honest with ourselves at this point.
I'm sorry, you said 125 in 2025?
Yeah, by the end of 2025.
Just a couple of quick questions. The assessed values that you talked about at the end there in the comparison that you had with the other buildings, are you talking about the assessed value based off of the town assessor?
Yeah, exactly. That which are those assessed values translate, as you all know, with the tax rate to the taxes paid by the company.
That's why I wanted to make sure it was that,
Yeah.
and not like a real estate assessment.
No.
Different, right?
No,
Yeah.
It's Denise Ellis's assessments.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the investments that you said that you additional or increased investments that you made in manufacturing, those were not anticipated in the original TIF?
Correct. We anticipated a certain spend rate based on what the build was, and over the course of time, a combination of things have driven our increased investment, but it wasn't the original plan to go to this level.
Were the nature of those investments such that that's what did it increase your assessed value, or did it really have no impact on the assessed value? It was just more investment you had to make out of pocket yourselves.
I might have to defer to Rob for the tax feedback on it. It's probably a little bit of both, if that's accurate, Rob.
I think that's fair to say, yeah, a little bit of both.
Anything else, Denise?
That's all I have for now. That being said, I've not had a chance to look at the document at all, so I may have some follow-up questions after I've had a chance to read it, but that's all I had for the moment.
Anyone else have any questions?
Most mine answered at the selectmen's meeting. Based on the date of the agreement, safe to say we are in year 6 right now?
I'll leave that to Brian. I believe we're in year 1, correct?
Yeah. So Laura, the way the TIF is structured is that it starts the fiscal year following certificate of occupancy. So certificate of occupancy was achieved in the fall of 19. So July 1 would have started. July 1 of this year was the start of year 1.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Renee, my question is probably more to Paul, and I don't think you covered it at the beginning, the introduction, but the flow of this, Paul, again, is from us to go from here, then to the finance committee, then to the select board, and then is that all that's required, or does it actually have to be revoted on at the town meeting?
It has to be revoted on.
Yeah, I believe it has to go.
And we're hoping to do this in October, if I'm not mistaken, right, Renee?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's right. And when does the warrant close on that?
It's already on the warrant.
Yeah, okay. So, but it doesn't need to be finalized. When does it have to be finalized by?
I mean, the warrant has to close and be posted, I think, 7 days before the meeting.
Okay. Good.
So I believe it's on our agenda on the select board's agenda for Thursday the 1st.
Thursday. That's
And then are you guys meeting with FinCom on Monday? Is that the schedule? Okay.
It is.
Correct.
Yep.
So, no, please go ahead, Laura.
Can I just ask, was the certificate of occupancy issued in accordance with an expected schedule? Are we on time?
It was a 2-year delay, correct? From what was originally anticipated in the initial agreement. We had a 2-year delay of opening the building.
Okay.
I don't believe there was any obligations or, requirements, but we anticipated 17, but it was 2 years later. And that alludes to what I mentioned earlier about certain things in the development of our business, certain programs slowed. And so it affected our hiring rate and the execution rate of the project.
Yeah. And we had notified both the state and the town much sooner to let them know that the project had experienced some delays and that we'd be coming in a little bit late from what was expected from the TIF.
Any other questions? So we can do one of two things. I know I just sent the document out right before the meeting, and Denise, you haven't had time to review it, nor has anyone else, I think, other than myself and Michael, because we got it on Friday. So we are meeting tomorrow. We can hold the vote tomorrow, and then I can forward that along to Mike Units, and he can get it to you guys as well. But I'll put that out for discussion, because if you'd like, if anyone on the EDC would like them to come back in the event that you might have questions that you want to discuss further, we can have that conversation too about putting them up first tomorrow as well. If you guys would have that opportunity, if needed.
If absolutely, it's
Happy to
whatever
come
you
back.
need.
I don't think there's any need for them to come back. I mean, I hate to have them waste another night. I think for me anyway, I can't speak for everybody, but
I would agree. I'm comfortable, having just reviewed it here, and I understand what's being asked. It seems reasonable.
Okay, so why don't we just officially go ahead and the chair will entertain a motion to support the amendment to the original Elm Island TIF as presented this evening. I just need a motion on that.
So moved.
Thank you, Michael. And a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Laura. And we'll do a roll call vote because we are virtual. Sandy?
Yes.
Denise?
yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So that passes with a vote of 5-0. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming to present us. And I'll shoot Mike an email after this meeting, just letting him know what the resolution was. And he should be joining too, so we could probably give him a heads up before we break as well.
Madam,
Thank you
Madam
very much.
Chairman.
for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate your time, guys.
Madam
Thank you
Chairman,
so
can I
much,
ask
Mike.
one question before they go? Can I ask one
Sure.
question?
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, we would love to have you back on the EDC probably after. Right now, we're focused on addressing some of the marijuana dispensary issues on bylaws and this. But one of the goals of the EDC is to really get an understanding of what you're doing as a business, how we might be able to help you as a town, kind of get that message out to the citizens of the town, and also help you and see if there's any other synergies between your business and other businesses in town. So we would, hopefully you'd be open to coming back at that point when we get to that point when we're having those discussions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. We're
course.
on board as soon as just pick up the phone or shoot us an email. We'll be here.
We appreciate you being in Norton and supporting us as a whole as a town.
Wonderful. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you,
you,
John.
Guys,
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a
all.
good
have a
evening.
great night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Paul, do you have any idea, did FinCom start at 6:30 or did they start at 7 as well?
6:30.
Okay. I have to think about if we had enough people to start. And it seems we do. So why don't we go into, it is 7:27, so we'll go into the marijuana retailer subcommittee discussion. And the only member missing, in addition to Anthony and Mike that I had mentioned earlier, is Mike Units. I don't have comments from Anthony or Mike, although Mike indicated he would send them later. He will be on the meeting tomorrow, so if we need to have a short session for discussion on anything that we covered today, we can do that. Anthony will not be able to make either meeting tonight or tomorrow, so just so you guys are aware of that. Okay, so Andre, I'm going to promote you to a panelist, and then I think you just have to unmute yourself, and if you're interested in sharing your video, that would be great. If you guys remember, we reviewed Solar Retail Norton LLC last week. We had a list of questions for the applicant, and let me just pull that up real quick. Before we start a discussion, give me 1 second.
Just want to confirm that you can hear me all right. Hello, hello.
We can hear you, Andre. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to, would it be helpful, guys, for me to share my screen? Or do you just want us to verbalize the questions? It's up to you.
Either or doesn't matter, Renee.
Okay. Then I'll, Andre, are you going to share your video?
I prepared a few slides, Renee. I don't have a video.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know if you were gonna go on video, but if you prepared slides, then I'll hold off on sharing my screen.
Sure. Just let me know if you can see it.
Yeah. 1 second.
Oh,
Andre.
I apologize, Renee. You're referring to like the camera?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties with that. I'm not sure if it's a driver issue or something like that. But I have prepared a few slides for today's conversation. I'm hoping you can see them. We typically use Google Meet, so I'm a little bit of a novice here with Zoom. So are you able to see it now?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Terrific. Wonderful. All right. Well, so just very quickly, I just want to thank you all for this opportunity. Renee, thank you so much for organizing, and the rest of the commission for being here. I'm happy to follow. I mean, I don't know if we have an agenda that we can step through, or I've got the questions in front of me. I'm happy to just kind of go through them. Any preference on protocol here?
I think, Andre, if we can go through the questions, because they really go primarily in order of our our documentation so that folks can make notes as appropriate?
Sure. So I'm happy to step through those if we're ready. So the first question, Renee, was the issue of available capital, and some members of the subcommittee felt that this may not be an adequate level of funding. So the state does not mandate an explicit funding amount requirements for the proof of capital portion of their application. In fact, the capital verification letter that we submitted was really just a snapshot in time to demonstrate some capitalization. But I also wanted to share with the group some of the requirements and sources traditionally associated with the startup of a retail operation. And mind you, we've done about 2.5 of these. So, I'm trying to take a data-driven approach here from some of the results that we've had. And really, ultimately, this is the point of that letter. And even Solar Therapeutics, when we submit our letters to the state, we typically submit a very similar number, maybe, $100,000 over that. But very quickly, just want to step through some of the components of the capital requirements. You'll very quickly see that cash is a part of that, but also there are other elements like the inventory. Between the inventory and the building and construction is sort of the lion's share of the capital requirements. And in both of those, as I'll step through some of the benefits of our partnership with Solar Therapeutics, I'll be able to step through how we address all of the capital requirements with our proposal. And certainly are prepared to demonstrate more liquid capital if that's required, but I just wanted to step the group through this. And so what you see here are some of the costs associated with the host community agreement and special permitting process, the licensing and fees associated with the state, all of the compliance and enterprise resource planning systems and IT systems that go into the build out and startup of the location, along with launch payroll. So these are sort of the liquid part of the equation, and these amount to about $225,000 of liquid cash in our case. Naturally, you need inventory to open, and as I'll cover a little bit later in today's session, we've got a terrific partner in Solar Therapeutics to basically have access to more inventory and variety of inventory that we could ever dream of selling at that site with really favorable partner terms. So we have, business credit, net 30, net 45 repayment terms. And finally is the building itself, which we've got earmarked for about $500,000. That number may fluctuate. It also happens to be, being borne by the landlord who is going to be financing it through his bank. And so I just wanted to share this high-level snapshot of the capital requirements and sources as they pertain to a retail operation. Any questions here or anything that we'd like to step through?
I don't see any, Andre, from the group. I'll give it just 5 seconds in case Denise has something. She's not on video.
I'm okay right now. Yeah.
Thanks, Denise.
Sure.
So Andre,
So
the
we can-
letter that you sent over was, I'm sorry, you said any questions, then I get my mouth shut. So the letter you sent over with the $250,000, that was purely for the application, just that point in time when the beginning areas. I mean, obviously, you have partner terms, bank financing, that is the majority of that, but the other is pretty much just that point in time.
That's exactly right, Michael. So that's just an indication of, mostly to the state, right, to show that you can mobilize that type of capital, have it in a verified bank account. As you see here, we actually have baked in a little bit of an overage, so we may not even end up going through all of that cash, but certainly prepared to source more if it's required. No, I don't.
So does the building or so forth, I mean, you talk about, and I'm just asking because I see it. Does
Mhm.
is the building have to be owned by a different corporation? Because of bank financing, they're not going to give a cannabis business bank
Well,
finance.
in our case, it's we're not involved with the building at all. That's just the landlord's
Okay.
property,
Okay.
and that's handled through a lease.
Okay, perfect.
So, sorry, if you could just
So-
clarify one quick thing. This is going to be landlord financed building and construction.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. Should we move on to the next section, the revenue projections?
I'm good.
I think you can. Andre, go ahead.
Sure. Let me see here. I'd like to be able to see the full. So we've got a fairly established methodology or rubric that we use. Guys, sorry. How do I minimize? There it is. Okay. So we have a fairly well established pro forma model for our revenue projections. The building blocks of that are actually a comprehensive population density analysis around a 20-minute drive time from the proposed site. And so that number, in this case, is just under 240,000 folks. What we do with that number is then we do a consumer adjustment. And so that's what this figure here represents. It essentially means that our assumption is that 7% of the population is a cannabis consumer. The actual state figure as published, I don't know how frequently they do it, but in Massachusetts, it's actually around 12%. So this is a conservative estimate. But these are sort of the main assumptions around revenue projections. We then back into product volume assumption that's backed by actual granular transaction data that we have through our site, which lands us onto this total revenue figure. And then what we do with that is we actually adjust it for competitors. And so that's how we land on that 17.5. And then the other assumption there for the subsequent years is just actually a very conservative 7% growth rate. I can share with you that what we're seeing in our store today is actually 15% a month growth rate. And so that's just, another indication of trying to have a conservative set of projections for the location.
Why aren't you adjusting for additional competition?
Well, we do have a variable for that in our model. I think the other big part of this is, and something that we see firsthand, and another really compelling part of our partnership with solar is that what you'll find is that today, the drivers of business success are essentially product selection and availability, right? If you have the flower and you have the flower selection, you get all the consumers. In fact, there is, I don't know if this is, in the public domain, but there is actually a significant flower shortage in the state right now, where none of the independent operators can get access to flower because they don't grow it. They just sell it. And so this is a major differentiator with our proposed site and the relationship and partnership that we have with Solar Therapeutics. On top of that, as I'll cover it on the next slide, solar is not just a local mom and pop brand. Our vision there is to build a national, highly recognizable brand, both with industry insiders, but also very much so with the consumer, that resonates with our core values of sustainability and doing what's right for the planet, but also doing it in a not a tone deaf way, but in an exciting and edgy And, I'm not sure if you folks have had the opportunity to look at any of our digital marketing stuff or our social accounts, but we're doing a lot of great stuff there that is establishing solar as, not just a local independent mom and pop shop in Mass. And so, the other big assumption is that we're able to outcompete in the marketplace, not only from a product offering standpoint, but also on the brand and values and what it means to be a solar customer and solar consumer. And so we're very confident in those projections.
Andre, can you help me just understand more about the average monthly visits, how those were determined? I wasn't understanding how you had
Sure.
created it, so.
Yeah, it's another fairly simple metric, Paul. It's just dividing the monthly sales by the average ticket we're seeing right now. Another, hyper data driven metric, which is around $80 or $81 per ticket. And so, so that's how we land on these projections for the Norton site.
So can I understand, just because I'm not familiar with this, so you're saying that the average person that comes in spends $80 each time they visit a store?
That's right, $81 a month. Excuse me, in this case, $81 a visit, pardon me, correct.
Because Andre, my understanding is when they people come into a store, they're limited as to how much they can buy. Like, is it an ounce but there are, I guess, other products that they can get in addition
So that's a great question, Paul. The state mandated cap is an ounce per visit. There are, conversion parameters to convert raw flour into derivative products. But basically the right way to think about it is it's an ounce per visit per day, or rather it's an ounce per day. I think is the intent of the law, but we don't really have a way to enforce that. So the retailers are just limited to 1 ounce that they can sell to the customer per day.
Andre, this is Michael. Let me ask you this. I mean, this is the sales guy, me, and I'll call me a sandbagger when I'm a sales guy. These numbers seem very aggressive, and it's awesome. These numbers are incredible if you hit them. But they seem very, very, to me, very aggressive. Are these what you truly believe are the numbers, and you've just basically this? I think you're just shooting for the stars, or do you think these are accurate, or do you think these are low? I mean, are these conservative? Where are you on the confidence of these numbers?
Michael, this is my middle of the road assumption, and as I mentioned, we've got a fairly proven methodology by which we go into these that's backed by actually ringing the register in Somerset and very soon to be doing so in Seekonk. So I appreciate that these numbers look very big to you, but it's just the nature of our industry today, and it's
yeah. I mean, I'll surrender. I'm seeing the accuracy. To me, this in my head of what I figured it would be. These are larger than what I thought they would be personally. And I'm not in the business. I just,
there are places doing $50-60 million a year. Places that are in more densely populated areas. So.
Okay, great. No, I mean, it's
yeah.
something, I mean, you've got the expertise, and I would never ever question that. It's just, I guess I just had this number of like, okay, this is what the revenues to the town would be. And we obviously take the revenues to town, but we got to a point of there. And I'll be honest with you. I thought I thought it was half.
Well, it'd be a great upside. I hope
it's
a pleasant surprise for you, but
I'm in.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Andre, you mentioned 15%. Is that based on 15% increase month over month? Is that based on the Somerset location?
That's correct.
And how long has that been open now?
We just actually celebrated our year. If you don't, if you chronologically, we just celebrated 1 year, our 1 year anniversary. So, we had a few months obviously of downtime with COVID, but chronologically it's been a year.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that I've been, with solar for over 2 years, and the biggest thing that you sort of get befuddled by from the inside is just how slow moving everything is. And so even some of the concerns that people bring up around, competitors and all this other stuff, it's really, it just seems like it's in a whole different dimension of rolling out. So I wouldn't, and maybe that's a contrarian view, but that's just what we're seeing from the inside.
Andre, with COVID and, expecting that we'll still be impacted by it through some point next year, hopefully not so late, but do these numbers for 21 somehow estimate the impacts of COVID? And I guess I should start by saying, has the industry been affected by COVID?
Paul, that's a fascinating question, and our experience has been that COVID's been actually a tailwind for us. Certainly leading up to the shutdowns, we saw substantial increases in volume, and I think people were stocking up. But what we found since opening, the first week, it was a little bit kind of slower as I think the consumer felt it out. But we've since rebounded and surpassed what we've been doing prior to COVID. And so I think, you see headlines about our industry being very resilient against economic downturns. But I also think in this case, I think that holds true for pandemics as well, apparently. People,
Yeah, so in a way it's kind of like liquor then. It never really it never really is that dependent on the economy, it sounds like. People drink when the times are good, they drink when the times are bad. So
I think you're right. I think there's definitely parallels. I think we're
and Andre, tell me if I'm wrong, and I'm just say this from a friend who may have purchased at another dispensary. It's $80 is not outrageous. It's 2 packs of edibles and maybe 2 $10 small leaf 1-hitters or whatever it is. To get to the $80 is not an outrageous number. It's pretty accurate.
Oh, it's not even close. You're absolutely right. So an edible will be anywhere from $30 to $50. Flour, which is represents 55% of our product mix, just the actual flour itself, will range anywhere from $50 to $65, and an eighth of an ounce, depending on the test results and the THC content and the some of the terpene profiles. So no, I mean, people, if you saw some of these tickets, people will spend thousands of dollars or figure out ways to, maybe not thousands, but I've seen some, $400 or $500 tickets, like it's going out of style.
Never mind. This is totally off the top. I'm not going to ask my question.
Andre.
Yes, Renee. I visited it before I visited the grocery store for COVID. All right, there it is.
Andre, can I ask when you expect to have Seekonk online?
So absolutely. So we are really, really pushing hard to have it open before the end of the year. Unfortunately, there's 2 buckets of things that we do control and things that we do not control. And so, we have every economic incentive to push and get things done as quickly as physically possible. I mean, literally there's a dollar value per day for us. And so, just due to actually it was mostly due to COVID and permitting and things like that, but that we've had to bump our our target towards the end of the year. But we were actually hoping to be done and open with a month or two to spare originally.
Okay. So I'm going to walk you through a hypothetical based on your own projections and analysis and comment with regards to availability and quality of product.
Mhm.
Somerset is approximately 20-minute drive to Seekonk. Given it's the
Sure.
same product, what are you expecting your Somerset revenues to what happens to your Somerset revenues when Seekonk is open?
Well, that's a really great question, Laura. I think the reason we're very excited about Seekonk is that it's less than 2 miles from the Rhode Island border. I think it's about a 10-minute drive to downtown Providence, which is today a medical-only market. Believe it or not, we actually do have visibility into origination data in terms of where our customers come from. And, you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There is a portion of our customer base that comes from Rhode Island. But I think that most likely that we're going to continue to see general, like top line growth in general. And I think we're mostly going to be able to attribute it to just more and more folks experimenting and testing it out and learning about solar, and maybe coming to us from some of our competitors across the bridge. So our internal modeling, you know, when we report to our shareholders, does not actually have a reduction in top line revenues for Somerset. That number continues to grow. As I mentioned today, it's growing. I mean, that's, you know, in any other business, you know, retail business, you're growing 15% a month. That's defying gravity. So, you know, I think that there may be some cannibalized traffic, but I think we're going to continue to see growth there just because as the industry continues to gain momentum in the state and our brand continues to get stronger and we have more and more selection from our competitors. So, sorry, I hope that's a long-winded answer, but.
So Andre, just in the interest of time, can we move on to the next question?
Yeah.
Because I think we had kind of a natural progression there because you were starting to talk about the timeline. And, you know, as I mentioned, we thought that it was a bit aggressive what you put in there. We obviously talked about the fact that the public hearing or session wasn't accounted for within your initial timeline, although it was mentioned in a separate section. And then there was some discussion about the plans for the building, reusing the existing or demoing, rebuilding, just really understanding that bit of time too.
Sure. So there's a few things. The first thing I wanted to mention is that I did get a chance to glance through the video, but that date of July 27, 2021 is 270 days from October 30th. So that, I think there was some mention of some sloppiness or something like that. So they're really, that's an accurate representation of the begin sales date based on those assumptions. Obviously, as I mentioned previously, there are things that we do control and things that are out of our control. In terms of, you know, submitting an application to the CCC, we've done this almost a dozen times by this point, so we've got it down to a science. Really, as I think the committee correctly identified, the main dependency is the community outreach meeting, which can be completed with 2 weeks notice. This is a recent update in the regulations. Originally, it's actually just 1 week's notice. And so that, and typically our protocol is as soon as we have the host community agreement in hand, we literally initiate the community outreach process. And so that target date of 10/30 is, again, that's something that's in our control, and we're very confident that we can meet or exceed that. I know that there was some discussion about the CCC's turnaround time on the initial provisional. So today, I can tell you for Somerset, that was 6 months. For Seekonk, it took 9 months. And the assumption that we have in this application, which is really an assumption that we go on, is based on the chairman of the CCC's commentary around aggressively staffing up at the beginning of 2021 to shrink the initial turnaround time to 90 to 120 days. And so that's what that assumption represents. The special permit process, again, our special permit process in Somerset didn't even take 30 days. So that's something that's out of our control, and it's very much going to be municipality dependent. So that's another assumption in there, including the architectural and building stuff. We do have control over the build out period, where this is not a large build out where we plan on leveraging prefab and kind of industry best practices and efficiency to, we think 2 months is more than enough time to do what we need to do there. And then again, based on our experience of coordinating with the CCC after having been a provisional license holder, we think we can move through the rest of that timeline as we have it represented here. So in terms of the things that are in our control, we're very confident about them, but the big caveat is that some things are not in our control. And so this is our best guess estimate.
So Andre, have you had detailed conversations about the build out schedule with the landlord?
I have.
And they're confident with that?
They are confident with that. We have a 6 to 8 week build out schedule. And primarily that's because there's going to be pre-planning in parallel happening that's going to leverage modular and prefabricated technology to stand this, fairly, it's not a sophisticated building. It's just, it's just a shell. It's just a retail shell. And there's,
okay.
In terms of the build out schedule, that's in our control.
Andre, you had said earlier that the property owner will end up building the building.
That's right.
They're funding it too.
That's correct, Paul.
Okay.
What are they getting for that?
They're getting a tenant, a very healthy tenant that is going to be assigning almost a 20-year term.
They're getting a % ownership in the company?
The landlord is not.
Any other questions on the timeline? Okay, seeing none, why don't we go on? So we had some questions on how the parking generation was calculated, who calculated it, and if traffic engineers were involved.
Sure. So that was the preliminary plan that was generated by siting architects and engineers. We did not involve any traffic analysis studies at this time. Given that those types of studies are, $10,000 to $15,000, it's understandable that that's something we would do after we secure a host community agreement and initiate the special permitting process. I can tell you that, the layout that's been designed here as guidance does use and rely on industry standard metrics, right? So I think the industry standard is around between 3 to 350 square feet per spot. And so that's one of the ways in which you can go in and try to back into a parking spot analysis. But ultimately, detailed siting and parking and architecturals and all those things will be provided once a host community agreement is secured and we're moving forward with the process. I can tell you that parking and in general traffic has become the main issue in our industry today. Before it used to be security, but if you don't get this part right, it can be a real pain in the rear. And so this is something that we have firsthand experience in, and so was a very important factor in selecting this site. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find that many dedicated spots, anywhere in the state. I mean, I think there might be a few folks, but.
Great. Are there any other questions from the committee? Subcommittee? Okay, Andre, moving on. We had
Yep.
some, oops, I moved my mouse. We had some questions about the full-time positions. I think specifically there was a security director or maybe an HR director. And what we wanted to understand if those full-time positions were for this facility or if they were being shared across other facilities.
That hiring plan is for that facility specifically. I think I don't want to kind of predict as we grow, but no, that hiring plan is specifically for that location.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then the next one, I'm sorry, are there any questions from the group? Okay. The next one was to explain the volunteer positions, including the roles and responsibilities and that's supposed to say vetting process, not vetting process in my email.
Oh man, that's too bad. I was getting ready to explain the betting part. I was hoping to get some clarity on that, Renee. I think, we have mentioned volunteering. We mentioned volunteering in two different ways. So there's volunteering by us in the communities in which we have the benefit of operating. So volunteering with community service. And then in terms of employees volunteering, it's, folks that are looking for internships or anything like that. And so I just wanted to make sure I was answering the right question. So which portion of the volunteering was the question regarding?
I would lean towards the internship portion because it sounded like they were being bucketed with employees and we didn't understand how you could have volunteers in this type of establishment.
Sure. Well, I can give you a great example. Just at Solis Therapeutics, we've got all sorts of interns for marketing and media and what is it called? I always space out on the graphic design, right? So there's a lot that goes into successfully executing a business like this. And so I think we always just reserve the right to let folks volunteer. Now, naturally, they will have to go through a rigorous background check process that's mandated by the state, but there's no reason we couldn't, accommodate folks if they wanted to intern.
Would these be on site at the retail establishment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would depend on the role, Laura. It could be on site, it could be remote. It would just depend on the role that they were interning for. So, like, I'm sure you can imagine the digital marketing intern, right? They might work from home or part time or from. I think it would depend.
If they were on site, are there specific requirements? I mean, I know you said the background, like, and this is just my own knowledge, do employees have to be 21?
So I believe it's 18. You know what? Actually, that's a great question, Renee. It's either 18 or 21, but I can get back to you on that. I actually don't recall that right off the top of my head, but I can absolutely get back to you on that. Okay. But in any event, they would absolutely be, we would be abiding by all state mandated requirements.
Okay. Any other questions from the group on this item? Okay, the next one, Andre, was in respect to the access control system and if it failed, not power related specifically, but if employees would be able to safely exit the building, if doors will fail secure to protect restricted space, and if they were in the space, how would they move around?
Sure. So the electronic access control system is actually a business decision for us. It's not something that is required by the state. And so it's above and beyond what the state requires, but all doors have a primary hard key control system in place, which is physical keys. And so that, in the event of a power outage, the system would fall back onto that system of control. And any points that have mandatory egress requirements would have fail secure panic bars that you just push through and the doors would open, and the like.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, let's go into the next one, Andre.
Sure. So the rear of the
yep.
property, that's something that we didn't really intentionally plan for that. I did hear during the last session you had that it's perhaps a buffer between the some of the folks behind the building. That wasn't intentionally designed that way, but we're happy to work with the town to accommodate any guidance or requests or requirements that you folks may have. Obviously, we could use that space for added parking, but we're fairly flexible in coming up with a siting plan and layout that's agreeable to you folks.
Great. Any questions, follow-up questions to that? Okay, I think this came up in two different places in discussion, but primarily around the parking. What was the next one? Oh, so the next one was about the percentage of controlling interest between those with direct and indirect control.
Sure. So I don't believe the application requested the specific percentages, nor, typically that's a private thing, but I'm happy to share it with the group for the sake of transparency. It's not really a secret that we intend on keeping, but so the vice president has a third interest in the location. So he does not have a controlling interest. Was there another question, or were there any other questions that pertain to those percents?
So you would have 70%, correct?
So
Or
I
2/3 percent.
It's less than that. I can tell you. So the other two shareholders there are Solar Therapeutics at the state allowed maximum of 9.9%, and then the remaining balance, as it stands today, is would be myself. And I think this dovetails into the next question nicely, which is, what is exactly a licensed partner? And this is something that I can talk a lot about because it's very unique. It's something that we've developed internally. It's something that we're actually proactively working with the state on. I'm sure you've all read about the nightmare scenarios with all these backdoor deals and these management contracts and owners' debt instruments that essentially are just basically illegal, because in the state we've got a limited licensure model that caps the number of licenses that any controlling interest can retain at 3. And so we're very excited about this model. And basically, as a preferred solar partner, a licensed partner, what we retain is a license to use the solar brand and its assets. So starting with the actual building itself, it's going to be branded as solar. The interior is going to be designed to solar's interior design principles. And from the consumer standpoint, they're going to think they're going, not think, but they're going to be having a solar therapeutics experience, or really where the company is moving towards is solar cannabis. There are many benefits to this, but the main one is just recognition, because we're investing a lot in the solar brand, and we believe it's going to be a main competitive differentiator as the industry matures in Massachusetts. And so even today, I've just quickly posted a few things, but we've got Forbes articles, we've got dozens of billboards all across the state. We've got professional digital marketing, all sorts of different collaborations with different brands we're working on. So there's, again, this isn't just a local kind of mom and pop vision that we have for solar. We think we want to be the market leader in Massachusetts and beyond. And we're very proud of that. We're very proud of the work we're doing with the state to be super transparent and upfront about what we're doing. And I'm personally very excited about the opportunity and very excited to bring the solar brand to Norton. So in addition to the brand and everything that comes with that, the other major consideration are the long-term inventory and product supply agreements that we have with solar proper. So again, as I mentioned today, this is a major point of success in the market, just because most folks that are just kind of operating a retail front, it's a constant battle trying to secure inventory and trying to compete with a long growing list of folks that are trying to do the same. We don't have that problem. We've got long-term agreements with solar and with favorable terms to boot. So we don't have to pay for it. We get really terrific terms, 30, 45-day terms on product. And so this is one of the things that allows us to be more efficient with our capital as well, as we discussed in the beginning. So in addition to the product and the brand, we also get, I think the simple kind of way I explain it is it's a turnkey solution. So all of the ERP systems and compliance systems and IT and security and all the technology and all the point of sale systems and everything that goes into opening one of these locations, which I can tell you is a tremendous amount given the highly regulated nature of the industry, is available to us. And it's essentially a blueprint that we'll be using in Norton. On top of that, obviously the licensing thing I've discussed, all of the standard operating procedures and manuals are available to us. And then finally, the continued consulting and guidance experience of the principles of solar therapeutics, but also, and as importantly, I would say, the human resources that we'll have access to. So when you launch one of these, your launch team needs to be trained. Well, guess what? We're going to have them trained at one of the solar sites for 2 weeks before we open up. And so they're going to be on the third, for them, our grand opening is going to be the third week in operations or something like that. So there's a tremendous amount of synergy and benefit in this partnership. I'm very excited about it, very proud to do it. And I think it's going to put us head and shoulders above the rest. So I'm very proud of it.
Can I ask a quick question? In regards to product, in addition to credit terms, do you get any concession in pricing compared to somebody who may be approaching solar therapeutics cultivation?
That's a great question. That's a great question, Laura. The short answer is yes, we do. And I think one of the things I didn't mention, but what solar gets in return is obviously this nominal interest that's fully vetted by the state, but also, and I think more importantly, is the growth and expansion of the solar brand all over the state. And I think that, I think that's going to be what separates us and actually gives us disproportionate opportunities in all communities in which we operate, because it's going to be like, are you going to go to Starbucks, or are you going to go to, maybe Starbucks isn't a great example, but are you going to go to, Target, or are you going to go to like Joe's hardware store?
So essentially, it sounds like franchising.
It's absolutely not franchising. In fact, the state is very, very clear around, bright red lines around control. And so it deliberately has to be, and this is why it's a little bit counterintuitive and why it took us a long time to develop this, but it cannot have any elements of control traditionally associated with franchising. So, which is why it's so important that the folks that are vetted for this program, you know, are done so in a very rigorous manner, and folks that really fit the profile, because you don't have any of the traditional levers of control that you do with, you know, with an unregulated business.
Andre, if you had a Belushi brother, I think we could close the deal up tonight, but you don't. I'm only teasing, obviously. No, it's very impressive, the slides that you put together.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's, I'm actually very impressed with the work that you folks have done to go through the process and vet, because, you know, there is a certain level of risk associated with, I don't know that the state puts any of this, any of the statistics out there, but there is just a ballooning number of licenses that are just going nowhere fast, and HCAs are lapsing. And so it's not, you know, getting the HCA is not the hard part here. It's standing up and operating within this highly regulated environment, which is becoming more and more so by the week, it seems like. You know, it just requires, it's not a coffee shop, you know, it's not a t-shirt shop.
If you haven't, Andre, and you know this, the 4 women that are a major part of this they have dedicated themselves to get this thing done as quickly as and fairly and to the best. Choose the best partner for Norton. So, I mean, they've really determined, and I think they've laid out an incredible process.
I would absolutely agree with you, Michael. I think it's an absolute nod to the folks involved with the vetting process. So it's important, and you guys are doing a great job.
So thank you, Andre and Michael. I think I just want to go back to the question. So I think that you answered the next question, which was the relationship and dynamics between Solar Therapeutics and Solar Retail Norton, just in your discussion on licensed partner. So then the next item was whether or not Solar Therapeutics has the output to sustain this company and the existing retailers and I guess the ones that you're about to bring online too.
Yeah, the short answer is absolutely times 10. You know, I think that Paul and Michael have had a chance to tour our facility, and gosh, it seems like maybe a year ago now. There's been a tremendous amount of development since. And so the punchline is that absolutely, you know, the wholesale is a big part of the strategy at Solar Therapeutics. And so, you know, we're going to be able to supply an order of magnitude, you know, 10 times what we're going to need at Solar proper and Solar partner locations.
Great, thank you. Guys, any questions? Any further questions on that? Okay, and then the last item was in respect to the specifics of environmental sustainability and sourcing of retail products and within the overall operations of Solar Retail. And I noted here the reason why you had this question is because most of the documentation that you submitted when we talked about sustainability, it talked about Solar Therapeutics, not necessarily for this store.
You're absolutely right, Renee. The reason I led with that is because, you know, the things that you can do sustainably in a retail store are just not as exciting and compelling. You know, I think that the real big opportunity and maybe the thing that most folks don't know is that the cultivation side of the business is really the big power hog. You know, it's all super resource intensive. You're talking about, you know, lights that are on 12 to 18 hours a day, and there's a tremendous amount of water that goes through that system. And so I think given that the product that we're going to be selling, you know, is going to be produced in such a kind of industry leading sustainable way, I wanted to lead with that. Of course, we're going to do everything we can to to make the site and the build out as environmentally friendly and sustainable as we can. In fact, I was a big fan of one of the ideas that was discussed on the video that you shared about getting creative with the parking and seeing, you know, how we can think outside the box to maybe avoid the blacktop. And so I can tell you that that's something that's personally a priority for me, and I would love to be able to find, you know, I know that everybody at Solar and, you know, our mission statement there, I think people would be all over pushing the envelope of how we can bring green and sustainable to retail. So that's something that's very near and dear to our heart there.
Paul, was that something that you had mentioned that you knew others were doing? Was that you?
No, not on the retail.
No, on the parking.
Oh, well,
I
no,
can't remember who brought that up.
no, I'm not. It wasn't me.
Okay, maybe it was Mike. I remember the conversation, but I'm not familiar with it, so it's hard for me to recall the specifics. Okay, any other questions for Andre? Okay, so Andre, thank you again for coming and just having this discussion with us, and for providing the materials there. Would you mind too, could you email this to me just so I can send it out to the team?
Absolutely.
And then, you know, for your awareness, I believe you've seen the agenda where we've kind of mapped out all the applicants that we're going to be reviewing. I imagine we're probably going to have to add a meeting, if not two, onto our agenda. So, you know, my hope is that we bring this, we vote and do recommendations before the end of October. I imagine it's probably the hope of the rest of the folks here too, just so we can move on to the next step and put this in front of the select board. But certainly I'll be in touch with more information as it's known. But I would say you might not hear anything until earlier mid-October from me, just looking at the outline here.
Well, I really appreciate that, Renee, and appreciate all of your time today. I'm happy to share this information as soon as we wrap here. And I just wanted to make sure that I make myself available, that if anything else does come up, if there are any questions or issues, obviously, you know, Renee, you have my email, so please just don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to get another one of these or jump on a call to discuss anything that comes up between now and then.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you, Andre. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a great night.
Take care.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's pivot right into the next applicant. It's applicant number 2, Rosenbuds. This one was presented in a slightly different format where the documents were individual. And I have to tell you, I am not as organized as I had hoped to be, and I can't find some of my initial information. So I'm going to be searching through a couple of these documents as we go, or we'll ask probably more questions than I typically would. But does everybody have access to either Dropbox or to the materials for the review? Okay. Paul, you haven't heard from Mike by chance, have you?
No, I haven't. So they might still be going on.
Okay. So let's see what we can get through. You know, as mentioned, I think I scheduled this maybe in the meeting invite till 9:30. I don't anticipate that we're going to get to the third applicant tonight, so I'll just throw that out there. If we do, that's great, or if we even just start the process, that's fine as well. Did we lose somebody? No. It just looks different now that we had so many people on screen. Okay, so follow the same process. We'll start off again. We're going to do Rosenbuds. The first section on this is under the management and operations profile. Let me minimize my screen here. I'm sorry. Let's talk a little bit about feedback on the first item, which is business plan demonstrates market and financial feasibility. Thoughts and opinions?
I guess unless anyone else wants to start, I have a couple of questions on it.
Go for it, Paul.
One is, you know, regarding it's a revocable living trust. And I'd really like to understand from the applicant, how does this become a financial source? Because you know, recently I actually got into, we have a revocable trust, and the way it works is, you know, when my wife and I pass on, that the benefactors get it. And I'm not sure, you know, so how this works. And I also see that it's made out to a Greg Rosen, which is not part of the management structure. So I don't know if these are benefactors or, you know, I just would like that clarified.
I had that note down too about Greg. I remember seeing the name and having to go back to look at it. I'm going to type the questions just to save some time, so I apologize. Before I was writing them down, but then it took me a while to actually type them up. So I'm going to try to save some time. Continue on if there are questions or comments, or if you just want to throw out your thoughts on you know, where you rated them or that you have no issues.
The other comment I have on this section with demonstrates market feasibility. The study, you know, I'm not a marketing expert by any stretch, but the study was really based on it seems like more general for Massachusetts. I didn't get a sense that this was very specific for this area. It just seemed a bit general in how they did their analysis.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying. I think it was in the business plan, they got a little more specific.
Yeah.
By the and town, by like population, and then kind of backed into it. But I get your point.
I just kind of didn't, I would love to hear them explain how it comes together into this site.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Obviously, we had these in several different documents, and I had trouble. It took me a while to kind of jump through and kind of put all this stuff together.
Yeah.
Paul, I guess I'd ask, you know, when you mentioned Massachusetts overall, I mean, you know, I think about this and I'm looking for kind of more like the understanding that there is some evaluation and some data, right, that's being referenced.
Sure.
I don't necessarily feel like, because they're looking at from a state level, that it's I don't want to say a negative against them, right, but that it's worse than specifically looking here. And I say that for two reasons. One, and Andre actually alluded to this, and we've talked about it a lot, right? There are a lot of HCAs out there. And I think it's difficult to predict like when competitors can really open up. And, you know, the one thing that I've noticed too is when other retail establishments are opening up, we just don't hear about it anymore. You know, like we had the one open up in Attleboro just right over our line. I didn't even know it opened up. I think somebody ended up coming across an article for it. So, I mean, I think about that, and I think about, you know, the fact that no matter what this is, it's going to be, you know, it's going to become like a liquor store, right? And you're going to have saturation all over Massachusetts. So I wonder, I don't want to say the relevance, because I think it's the relevance, but maybe the weight that we place on that, right? Because everybody's going to be in a similar situation.
Right, but there were things that, you know, I don't want to be careful not to compare, you know, what we went through or some other applications. It just seems like this didn't get into things like competitors and whatnot. And I'm not a business person. I've never owned a business. And I would ask any of you who have been in business that when you set up your business plans, I would assume that competition and what the overall market for this area is a really critical point of, you know, even if you're considering to place a business, any type of business somewhere, that there's some sort of market study that's, you know, very explicit to what you're proposing to do.
I would agree.
So are there, I did add your note down about like explain the market feasibility, how it comes together at this location. Did you want to elaborate on that as a follow-up question? Or just a note that you're saying for discussion?
Well, again, I think I would like if they could come back with more, you know, to you know, answer that and provide more details if they have it.
Yeah, I mean, to be more specific, I don't think that they kind of gave us all the top level of every category, right? So we're going to be pulling from these populations, these towns, and these are their populations. These were the average incomes. They were kind of giving us the top there, but never really dug into it, right?
Right.
That's my observation, Paul, and I think everything that you said is dead on, right? I mean, I put together a business plan, and it's going to talk about how I'm going to get to it's going to actually be a very clear pathway on how I'm going to get to the revenues, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think I would have liked to have seen more understanding that there's no prior experience within this industry. I would have really appreciated seeing them utilize some expert within the field, some consultants, some legal, security, anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it talks specifically about competition, it's saying that it's going to compete against other dispensaries in Bristol County. I think that's a quote. Roosevelt's will compete against other approved dispensaries in the region. Some of the closer establishments are good. He did mention Good Health and Theory Wellness. He did mention Good Health and Theory Wellness in Bridgewater.
Right. Right. And again, we now know that Mansfield and Attleboro, and again, this could be just, you know, when they wrote it. I don't.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the nature of it. Is this is a growing field, so.
Yeah, the Mansfield one, that's not open yet, is it? I don't remember seeing it when I
Nope.
passed.
Believe
I don't even remember hearing like a timeline.
Last I checked, I couldn't find it. I'm not sure they've gotten through the CCC process.
Yeah. But the Taunton one, when did that open? Was that at the end of last month? Or the end of, wait, what month are we in?
You talking about Attleboro or Taunton?
Attleboro. Was it the end of June?
Yeah, it was. I don't remember if it was kind of before they had to shut down. I think they may have opened and then had to shut down, but I don't recall specifically.
I believe
So,
I think retail stores had to shut down during the first phase of COVID.
Yeah.
I think they were, and then they were able to reopen.
It may have been the one in Attleboro. There was one that I was reading an article on, and oh no, it was the one in Boston, social equity applicant in Boston. They had just opened and then had to shut down due to COVID.
okay. Man, I gotta tell you, like my reference on time, like
It's all screwy.
it is, because you don't really have, you know, you sit in your house, like you don't have any sort of like landmark in your memory to think about when stuff happened.
Talking about it's the 180th day of March.
Right. Exactly. So I'm like, what month are we in? I don't even know. Okay. Anything more to talk about the market and financial feasibility? So I have two questions on that, and it sounds like overall we expected to see a little bit more detail. Okay. The next item, and I'll tell you, I think that this is the theme, right? That they're, in respect to the timeline, that they demonstrate an acceptable development timeline and ability to bring the proposed marijuana retailer to timely commencement. You know, I thought within the timeline that the one thing I liked is that it wasn't specifically tied to dates, because there are so many variables, you know, as opposed to, I think when I looked at some of the others and you saw a date, like, and we talked about it, you know, just a few moments ago, we had a date of like 9:30 and then 10:30, but the 9:30 date was for the HCA, which obviously isn't something that's going to happen. So then, you know, it leads to more, well, how does that impact your timeline versus being general and saying X amount of days after a certain task takes place. But I expected to see a little bit more detail on this item.
Yeah, in fact, I don't see a
Same.
reference to the special permitting process.
No, I don't either.
I mean, the architectural, I guess, potentially could be, but you know,
I view that more as a building permit, not
yeah,
special.
I'm being a little generous with that, but
Yeah.
you know, they should have identified that's a pretty critical step. So
Mm-hmm. Right, and with the construction of being like 180 days max, with a
Right.
lot within there, yeah.
but you know, as you know, the special permitting process could be
Right.
another 3-4 months. You know, again, depending on the complexity of the project.
And I didn't see anything in here that led me to believe that the landlord was doing the construction, like Solars. Did you guys see that? Because I don't want to
No.
make an assumption that,
Not in this one, no.
Yeah.
okay,
Well, if it is, it was not disclosed. And I don't think it was disclosed in solar either.
no, I don't think it was either.
One of them that we did review, it was clear that was what was going on.
So do we feel kind of similar to the other, I don't know if this necessarily saying the timeline is aggressive, but I think that the timeline not including some key components. I didn't see the information session on here about the location either. So I think it's missing some of the town specific.
But they do discuss it later on. It's just not in the
In the time, so it's like the
frame.
other one. Okay.
Well, of course, the time commitments for that is pretty minimal.
I didn't realize that the regulation had changed from 1 week to 2. Okay, so I'm putting in what I wrote was the timelines lacking in detail does not account for the special permitting process or information session, etc. Please explain how this may affect the overall time frame. Does that sound in line with the discussion?
Mhm.
Okay. Sandy, you've been awfully quiet.
I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Okay. So now we're going to hit on the security plan. This, I believe, was redacted, if I remember correctly. I'm going to pull it up because I'll move this one. No, it was something else that was redacted.
That was another plan.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be the bad guy. I failed them on this.
Mhm.
There's no mention of security personnel at all. No mention of security staff. No mention of scanning IDs. The security plan is woefully lacking. And that is a concern to me.
Yeah.
Why do I remember reading about the IDs and scanning? Was that in the training documentation?
It's funny because that's what I actually thought I was missing it. I was like, I must be missing it.
It's not there.
Large piece of the application.
They make a reference, they said they check IDs twice. There's no reference to scanning. The complete lack of security personnel. I'm going to be very blunt here. There's a difference between going back and asking for clarifications on things
Yeah.
and asking them to do it over
Yep.
and telling them what they need to do. I think this demonstrates a disturbing lack of experience, knowledge, and I'm not sure I want to keep reading.
This, I mean, I read this is really like a cut and paste from the state requirements.
It was. The security plan was literally just a rehash of Mass General Law. There was nothing customized or specific within it. There was no mention of security personnel. None. No security department, no security agent, no security personnel.
Right.
And no, you know, just, I think just adding to that is we don't see any specific, like what type of camera are you using? Where, you know, where is it located, positioned? It's just, yeah, it's just lacking, and it's just written very generically.
They did mention where the video cameras were.
Did they?
Yeah, because it's on. Hold on, it's on page 4 because it talk about all areas that may contain marijuana or vaults or safes for purpose of securing cash, all points of entry and exit, in any parking lot.
So probably what's required by the state, but
Yeah, I get that, and but what we're saying, that's a very general.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is a business plan. I want to see what your business plan is. I want to see how you specifically are going to operate. And there was a lot of, we would like to, we plan to. It very short on specifics.
Are you referring to the security plan or are you referring in general?
In general, unfortunately.
Okay. So is that, I mean, we're still going to go through these items here. So is that the case when we talk about the management operations plans as it relates to personnel policies?
There were personnel policies in place. Look, you know, it looks like they may have been. Are they, you know, are they related to a specific marijuana industry? I don't think so.
I read it more as retail.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was wondering, Renee, is, you know, when we get to someone who has a 1 in a category, I mean, I don't think this is just necessarily about, and I can't remember if I said this to the group not before, but I don't think this is just a matter of adding up the scores and seeing who has the highest. To me, when you get a 1 in a category or in multiple categories, maybe that you know, that's, I don't know how we can recommend that going forward when we're saying they're unsuitable in that area.
Oh, I don't disagree. I mean, I don't really see us, I don't see us like going through and, you know, adding everything up and then say, okay, these are my top 3. I mean, if we have applicants that we don't feel are meeting the level, the basic level that we want, then we just say that we're no longer considering them.
I'm glad you're saying that because this, I'll be honest with you, this application, it took me 4 tries to get through this application. Right, I just had to keep going back. Like it was, I'm not sure if it's underwhelming. It just didn't meet the.
It's inadequate.
Yeah, maybe right, Laura. It's just, I felt like it was inadequate for what I was hoping for. And, you know, I mean, if you want, I can score, but the score is going to.
The question is
going to reflect my comments that I'm giving you.
Yeah, but I think it's worth going through. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the process.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
I think we're bound to do that.
Right.
In fairness to the applicant and all of the applicants to go through this.
That's fine.
Everyone should be treated fairly.
Yep.
Agreed.
So again, appreciate the comments. And I don't think in certain areas that, we have to spend significant amount of time if we're in agreement, but we'll go through the items. So, okay, so we talked about the security plan lacking in detail, not referring to on-site personnel. In respect to the next item is presents high quality and well-formulated management and operations plans as it relates to personnel policies. That I agree. I think it was geared more towards retail, not necessarily marijuana retail. But I'll open that up for comment.
It definitely seemed generic to me, I guess is the best word, to not tailored to anything specific with the industry.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, the next item is establishes a comprehensive plan to prevent diversion of marijuana to minors and or the illegal markets.
I think they just recited back Mass General Law to us.
So does that mean because it's MGL that it's satisfactory?
It states that they know what they're supposed to do. Doesn't state what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think it's this section and others, it's more of a reciting of MGL rather than a specific plan for this business.
I mean, this is a section that talks about like scanning IDs, that they're going to be checking them twice. I mean, I think if anything, I don't see anything here that says that they're not doing what they need to do. And
well, I have one area where there was a specific concern and they were talking, and I don't remember where it is because finding anything in here is a little difficult, but it made reference to if somebody is found to be presenting a fake ID, they'll be removed from the establishment. They're not going to call the Norton police. I don't they have to report this? Aren't there procedures for this?
I don't know. I don't know what the guidelines are on that.
Everybody else had very specific situations of what happened in that instance. Yeah, the fact that they would just be escorted from the property was just a little troubling.
Are you aware of specific requirements of the town, or I don't remember seeing anything in the HCA either that was submitted by the chief in respect to that, but it's been a while since I've looked at that. Okay, any other comments on that section?
I think we're getting some kind of feedback or something, laughter or something.
There's no laughter in this house, I could tell you that.
Not unless it's Luna laughing, and I'm getting off the phone with you if she starts talking or laughing at me.
Pretty much.
So, this is it's funny as you review our next section's transportation, and when you look at the transportation verse there seems to be more referenced almost like hints of security and enforcement of other sections. So it's just, I know it's very generic. That's what I'm just gonna keep saying that.
So you're talking about presents high quality and well-formulated management and operations plans as it relates to marijuana storage, transportation, on-site deliveries, both to and from the marijuana retailer and delivery to customers.
Right, so if you go into like their section of transportation, it does, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're citing every law possible, that's all, every mass general law, and cutting and pasting, but
Yeah.
I'm just gonna,
Even,
stop
if,
it all together.
if they elect to contract with a licensed marijuana transporter, like, they kind of should have had this figured out by now.
What, that they would or they wouldn't?
Yeah. What's your I want to know what your plan is.
I mean, again, you know, I agree with what you're saying there. Like, I struggle with rating somebody low because they have provided the MGL, like that they're going to be in compliance with the MGL because that's what it is, right? Not saying that it wouldn't be different, but I can't say somebody's a 1 because they've said these are the things that we're going to do. We're, you know, all rooms are going to follow these requirements.
Yeah, I did not rate them a 1 on that particular category, but
Renee, then everyone would be, there's no measure then. If everyone just cited back mass general law, there is no measure.
Well, it's like Mike said the first meeting, right? It would have been great to just like not include any of the MGL in this and just say, okay, what are you doing in excess? But that, you know, that's not the requirement. The requirement is to comply with the law.
I don't even need excess or compliant. I want to see their specific plans to operate this business. That's what I want. And I
Yes.
don't want, if we do this, we may do this, we're thinking about this. These are things that should have been decided and put in this report.
Yeah.
I think Renee.
I don't.
I'm sorry, I cut Paul off.
No, Mike, go ahead. Go ahead.
Renee, is it like at this point? I mean, to be honest with you, I need Paul. I understand you want to review all the applications. You want the fair thing. It's almost like I want them to come back and because maybe their presentation is going to be your questions or so forth. And I understand what you're saying, Laura. You had your shot. You missed it. But I'm getting nothing out of this application, and I'm actually getting frustrated because I feel like it's where you have so many to get to, and I feel that our time would almost be better spent maybe skipping this one. Then
It's again, Michael. I'm the
I'm
purpose
just a little,
of this is
we have
to
so
review
many-
the applications, right? To review the applications, have discussion on them, and then determine next steps.
But when
We
do you
don't.
determine? But when do you
We
determine?
don't
Like, if
have
you're
to
halfway
bring.
through?
We don't have to bring an applicant back. Again, you still, so then you go through and you give, you know, your one piece of commentary, and then we move on to the next item. I mean, we can sit here and talk about 16 times about the process, but this was designed to be fair and equitable. And as an applicant that submitted documentation, whether or not you like it, feel it has enough detail, or like the format that it was submitted in, we need to go through the process.
I guess I disagree with that. If the application isn't up to snuff, there is a point where you can say, you know, it's not meeting the requirements. What were our expectations, or what the RFPs I expect. I mean, it wasn't meeting that.
The only time that we weren't going to review or that we were going to reject an applicant is if they did not submit the paperwork that was required. And then we would say we were not going to review them. So let's just get through this. So the next one talks about the location appropriate for the proposed use, given the scale and nature of the use, including but not limited potential impacts on parking and queuing of customers. My only thoughts here is I thought parking might be an issue. I thought the location though was appropriate. I mean, it's subject to the special permit, which could be challenging with the neighboring areas, and I can't think of what they're called. They're not watershed, but I think you guys know what I was thinking here.
Yeah. I had the same, you know, I think parking is going to be an issue, and there is little room on the parcel to expand based on the amount of wetlands and the setbacks that are required.
One thing, I don't know that this is substantive at all, but last week we received an application from the property owner for what we call an approval not required. Essentially, they're trying to split this lot into two. I don't think this has a bearing on this particular application, but I felt you should note that that's going to be in front of the planning board on Tuesday.
North, south, or east, west?
I'm sorry?
Is the split north, south, or east, west?
It
Does it impact
it comes
this?
off. It splits basically in half on South Washington Street. So that would be north-south-ish.
So does it allow what we've seen from the proposal, it's just splitting what I would kind of call like the excess potential wetlands off of the parcel?
Not just wetlands. So it could be developable land right up on South Washington. But again, this doesn't look like it's a big building, so I don't think this is an issue, but I wanted you to be aware that this application has come in. And usually approvals not required usually gets endorsed by the planning board. But I don't think this has any bearing on this application.
Okay.
I can't remember what the file was called that shows the plans.
It's called, hang on, because I wrote them all on it. And I just put it back in the pile, sorry. I actually printed them out and then just wrote the name of what the file was on each. Sorry, I lost it.
No, that's
Oh,
okay.
I got it. Nope. And I didn't on that one. Of course I didn't. Sorry.
What are you looking for, Renee? Which one?
I was looking for the one that actually showed
That
That's
that one.
Yes.
001 is the name of it. It should be the first one.
Yeah,
Every
it is.
single one.
Thank you. So it looks like, Paul, based on what you're saying, let me share my screen here. Just so I can understand this more. So from what you're saying is that the request was to split the property like this?
Yeah, something along
this is
the lines.
Is this the parcel here? This is the whole parcel, right?
Parcel right down to that line. Yeah, so Renee, if you bring it down, it's a large parcel.
Like this.
Well, no, go continue heading down. The line is actually, well, I'm pointing. What good is that? Keep going. You'll see the line down. Just follow the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then that's the size of that. That's actually not even the entire parcel. You can see the parcel goes off the map. So, but there's, I don't know, I don't remember the exact split, but it
Okay.
roughly halfway point. So the property owner's looking to create an extra lot.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Again,
Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue, but you should be aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments on the location? Okay, next item is presents high quality and well-formulated management and operations plans as it relates to record keeping and maintenance financial records. Michael, what is your, there we go. It was moving like independently, like an earthquake was going on.
Trying to get comfortable, Renee.
I hear you. I'm on the edge of my seat. I've been in this seat all feels like for 3 days. And anyway, any comments here beyond the expectation of more detail. I think if I remember this referred just to an accountant keeping the documents, but didn't really provide anything beyond that. Yes, no. Okay. Next item is demonstrates prior knowledge and or experience in marijuana establishments, retail establishments, or regulated industries. I only know the retail establishments.
Yeah, I didn't see the experience in it.
Oh, you know what? It was the banking. Am I getting my applications mixed up?
Right. There was retail and banking. I'm sorry, retail, but nothing in marijuana. And no experience in any aspect of the business.
No, and I think that was stated specifically, was this would be the first retail establishment.
And
Right.
it wasn't just that, it was, that I think gets back to Laura's point that, I think that's what her point was earlier, just that there's nobody involved in this plan or anything that has any experience. So, it's fine to have a first time, maybe you want to give people, a shot for a first time business like that, but you would hope they would pull in some expertise.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Consultant, legal, anything. Yeah.
And I think that goes into the next question about the management and operations team demonstrates prior experience in commercial cannabis ventures.
Yeah.
No partnerships, no mentoring, nothing sought.
Okay.
I would have even been happy if somebody had actually worked in a retail shop, something.
Mm-hmm.
There was one person who had worked, I thought, in a retail shop. It was one of the males.
We have the resume. I don't remember seeing that unless I did not understand what the business was. Oh, well, yeah, I know what you're referring to. So, research and develop for NES Group Canaleaf Development. I'm not exactly sure what Canaleaf does. NES Group is the company that Greg Rosen, who is providing the money. That's his company.
So I don't remember reading about this. I remember just separate conversations with them. Remember, they were the first ones to kind of come to us and share the knowledge on the industry. And I remember them being involved in that company. And I thought it was a brother is what I thought it was. And they built the actual structures for folks within the industry, if I remember correctly, but I didn't see anything on here. So I'll just caveat it to, I don't remember reading that here.
It's there, but I was never clear if this ever led to an establishment. I mean, it looks, the way it reads, it looks like it was just something they were planning, but it's a company, but it wasn't clear if that actually ever, opened for business as retail or manufacturing or.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
And I apologize. I don't mean to go backwards, but I just wanted to clarify. There was a question earlier around whether or not they were required to report the fake ID to the police. And I asked I'll call it a subject matter expert. And then they said the responsibility stops at refusing the service, that you don't have to report them to the police.
Thank you.
Yep.
Denise.
Wouldn't you think you'd want to file an incident report at least, though?
I
To
can
be-
only
To be a good steward of this town?
I can only provide my experience in the retail establishment of liquor during college. And it literally was, I mean, there were times I had fake IDs given to me with cops in the store, right? And I'd look at them and they'd come up and they would just let the people walk out. It wasn't something that they wanted to handle. I mean, and literally like our instructions were take the ID and have them leave the store. So, I mean, I'm surprised because with all the regulations, right, around the cannabis industry, you would think that it would be a little more strict. I mean, we should consider that though for if we're gonna, have some discussions. If our expectations are that, or we want them to do more, then we need to talk to the chief about that and how that would play out. Right, just now that this has come up.
I mean, I don't want my fake ID to be taken away. It says I'm clearly 21.
Right.
They don't even card me anywhere anymore.
I don't understand why, Paul.
I haven't been carded in a long time either, but I wonder if they're having people take their masks down when they card. Just in general. Step 6 feet back and remove your mask while I look at your ID. But I don't want to touch your ID. Okay. So the next item is demonstrates knowledge and understanding of licensing procedures. I didn't see anything that said no. I think licensing
No Mass
procedures,
General Law.
Yeah,
right?
it was a regurgitation of the regs.
So in this category, I will give them a very positive mark.
Demonstrates well-developed training plans for employees.
Not for the industry, no.
I think we touched on this earlier too, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I'll go back to, I think some of it is scattered around other documents, like Michael said, like the diversion of minors. Okay, the next section is plan for positive community impacts. So the first is demonstrates a well-developed plan for ensuring the protection of public health. It's very brief. I don't know.
It's hard to score without any specifics.
Any other comments? Okay, next item demonstrates a well-developed community outreach plan. I have to pull this up. I actually don't remember this section. Anybody want to provide an opinion?
Again, no quantification, no specifics.
What are you looking for from a quantification perspective?
Dollar amounts.
Yeah, see, I wasn't really looking for that because I think it's part of the HCA. I think it's fine that they put it in there. I thought of that when I saw the first one too. I actually thought that was actually a copy paste of the HCA.
We want to teach and inform people on the good cannabis can provide. I'm not confident in their ability to train their own employees, so.
Okay, any other feedback? Okay, next one, demonstrates a well-developed proposal for full and part-time employment and anticipated benefits packages for employees.
Not very well developed, no health benefits, and actually cited that it wasn't standard in the industry, which we have demonstrated is not the case.
We've demonstrated it's not the case to be standard in the industry, or that some industry applicants are providing insurance.
All industry applicants have provided health care to their
Our,
employees.
the applicants that the applications in front of us, you mean?
Yes. So to state that it's not standard in the industry, sorry.
I mean, I don't know, standard in the industry is quite big versus 5 applications to us.
True, but let's think about this from the perspective of the town and the employees from the town who are going to be working there. Do we want them to have health care?
Any other comments? The more comments you give, the faster we'll get through.
No commitment to hire local residents, no specific commitments to diversity.
I didn't mean from you, Laura. You're giving comments.
Sorry, you wanted to get through this quick. I can make it quick.
Yeah, I wrote, scores down, but I can't find this, to look back at it. And Laura's on it, but she can't give us a page number.
Yeah.
Because it's no page numbers.
No, the documents are named exactly what they are. I mean, like this one is number of employees plus benefits.
Okay, because
Right.
I'm reading the hard copy.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't do anything hard copy.
I happen to have them, so I
know.
usually do digital myself.
I almost took these and actually put them in like one consolidated PDF so I could search against it, because I like to search, but then I'm like, it's probably more effort because the titles were pretty clear. I think there's only been 1 or 2 that like I had to think about what it could be. Okay, so this goes into the other one.
I just
Go ahead,
wanted to
Denise.
say one quick thing, like things like diversity. While I agree, are certainly the gold standard, right? This business model is clearly, it's a family business, right? It's all the employees are family members, so I think it just doesn't fit in this business model. It's not really a requirement to have diversity, right? It's a gold standard for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't even, so they don't even know how many employees they're going to have on day one.
My sense from the documentation is that I think they're going to try to run it with just the family, and if they need to, they will hire part-time or whatever help outside of that. But my sense certainly was that this was intended to be kept in the family.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned the 1 to 2 that they plan to hire 1 to 2 management positions that will also have full-time roles, but then mentioned that the others will be part-time, and then anticipated the busiest part of the year, they might have up to 20 employees, part-time employees.
Yeah, that same sheet is where they say industry standard is shown cannabis places generally do not offer health or dental or any other major benefits.
Right. And again, I don't know that to be true or false, right? In our look of 5 or 6 or however many, I think, what do we have, 5? Right,
5.
they are. But I couldn't speak for, I'd have to go into a store and ask, do you guys get benefits, and call around. The next section, made financial commitments and other proposals for positive community impact. I didn't see any. I mean, I just saw that they would have a commitment to, I believe it was the cupboard of kindness, right?
Yeah.
I don't recall seeing any
Yes.
percentage or anything in there.
No, it actually said something if we become profitable or when we become profitable. I also didn't see any reference to the community impact fee in here. Did I miss it? I went looking for it a second time.
I don't know why it would need to be in there because it's a requirement as part of the HCA. I mean, it's a negotiation item, right? The board can come back and say 1%. The excise tax is not negotiable. I don't know that I'd necessarily see that in there, Laura, or expect to see it in there. Any other comments on that item? Okay, next one demonstrates a well-developed proposal for environmental sustainability and sourcing of retail products and within the overall operation of the marijuana retailer. I gotta tell you, I don't remember reading anything on this.
I don't think I could ever find it. Nothing was provided. I couldn't really even find anything about where they're sourcing their product from.
Well, there is again, very general. It says they'll strive to impact the surrounding environment as little as possible. They'll work hand in hand with the conservation team to preserve the surrounding facility. They identify initial goals are as follows. I don't know if you want me to read through it, but there are some. It's just there are some goals.
Is that the business plan document, Paul?
Well, again, I'm looking at
Oh,
it.
right, sorry.
So, but it talks about disposal of waste will be handled with care for the surrounding area and will not be dumped on the land. Next bullet, unnecessary removal of trees and other natural landmarks will not occur. Daily, weekly cleanups around the facility will occur. Sustainable techniques will be used in the store itself. They'll meet with the conservation team and learn more ways they can reduce environmental impact. And, you know, noble goals, but it's just not a plan.
Right, yeah. Or proposal. Okay, any other comments in that section? Okay, these are the items that were not specifically asked for in the RFI. The first one is a location appropriate for the proposed use, given the scale and nature of the use, including but not limited to potential impacts on traffic.
So that I would say is definitely a big pro for this one, right?
Yeah.
It's in a zone that doesn't even require the bylaw change. It's off of industrial park.
I would agree. Denise? Other comments? Okay, next one addresses the potential detrimental municipal impacts and propose acceptable mitigation measures. I think this one is the least traffic, like the least concerns from the town on traffic because of where it's positioned and its location to the exit and whatever that road is that I can't think of right now. It's not industrial, is it?
Around there's you're on Washington, Lopes.
Yeah, what's the that's all industrial though, that whole
Yeah, pretty
area.
much. There still are 2 or 3 residential property or houses here.
They're houses, but they're zoned
They're
industrial,
zoned
right?
industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that area has been transitioning to industrial,
Mm-hmm.
but there are still 2 or 3 nearby.
Yeah.
2 or 3 residential homes nearby.
I don't remember seeing anything about mitigation. I don't know if anyone else did.
Yeah.
And I looked at it primarily from a traffic perspective because it's typically what impacts us. Certainly it could be the other way if people are coming from 123, right? But I mean, I think that's expected in an industrial area.
Well, one question, not being very familiar, certainly with the retail end of this, but in retail, right, it's location, location, location. I would assume since this is close to 495, this is still a suitable location, as some of you were saying, just not like in other areas where it's along Mansfield or 123, those are commercial, there's retail there and more of a mixture of uses. This is an industrial area, but I would assume that a retail facility here would probably still be a fine location. But this one's different than the other locations that we're reviewing. And I don't know that this is, any worse off because of it, but it is different.
It is. I mean, to your point, it's not retail, but to Denise's point, it's already in a zone that's
Yeah.
zoned appropriately.
This would probably, in an area as far as traffic, it's, South Washington would certainly have less traffic than what's on 123 in Mansfield.
Well, most of the early ones are not in retail. They're in industrial type areas.
I'm referring to the applications.
Yeah. I mean, I think no, but some of the other ones around the state have just kind of popped up more industrial areas. Like the Brockton one is, while it's retail, it's really more industrial, right?
Yeah.
So I think people are going to search this out no matter these.
If they want it, they'll get it.
Yeah.
Type thing.
You will build it. You build it, they will come.
And I mean, I'm fine with the location of it.
Okay.
In terms of mitigation, we tended to just see general things like the company will do everything they can to prevent environmental damage. It just doesn't lay out that plan.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you seen that in an application? For just in general for planning a building.
Well, no, when you get to that level, you have to have specifics. And I realize this isn't it, but I think, well, anyway,
Okay, I'll stop.
So our favorite question and the last question, the next last item actually, is proposal integrates into the overall goals of the town of Norton. I just smile with that question. I know we've had so much discussion. I think that's been answered throughout the call, but I just want to confirm that we feel that the proposal is lacking detail and specifics that would allow us to properly really think about how does it work in the overall goals of the town, other than, back to the point of if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, I would say in the most simplest of the sense, they probably met the requirement of the ask, right? But it's insufficient detail to really gauge it well against the other applicants. So I think that's it. That's all I'd say, I guess.
It's a good way of putting it, Denise. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Laura? You don't
Oh,
have to comment. I just want to see if you have anything to add.
No.
Okay. And then the last item is in respect to the qualification as economic empowerment or social equity, and they identified that they are not either of those. Okay.
And as for just for any of these, because this one is really a yes, no. I know we haven't really gotten into the details of scoring, but is this, this one scores a bit differently than all the others? I mean, this could be a 0 or, 0 for no, 1 for yes. But I'm not sure and we don't, I'm just not sure on this one how do we score these?
On the question itself, you mean, for the social
Yeah.
equity applicant? So this was going to be an item, if we have, like, if it gets to the point where we have a ranking tie,
Yeah,
right? And one of the potential variables is this yes or no, right? And it's due to the fact that the timelines for a social equity applicant are a bit different and
Right.
faster, so potentially could bring business to the town
okay.
earlier.
So I've just marked it as a yes or a no.
Yeah, that's all I've been doing.
Same.
Just so we have that. And again, the us ranking it, it's we can use this as a guide. We don't necessarily have to go back and say these are the scores. It's not a requirement that we rank them. I think it certainly helps to establish some consistency. But in the end, we might come up and say, look, it's clear that we feel these 2 applicants are going to be the ones going ahead, or these 3 applicants, or whatever it is, right? I think that's a discussion that we'll get to at the end in respect to what do we want to take to the select board. But anyway, any other questions on this applicant? And a confirmation, do we want them to I think I know the answer, but I'm going to put it out there because it's a subcommittee. Do we want to bring this applicant back to answer any questions?
No.
I don't know, it's being recorded, so just audibles. Okay, anybody feel otherwise? Okay, so it is 9:28, and in the interest of not being here all night and having another meeting, I think that unless there's any objection, we adjourn here and we start applicant 3 tomorrow. Tomorrow is our next meeting. I just do need to confirm, so Anthony won't be here tomorrow. I'm sorry?
The applicant tomorrow's Lucky Ladies, correct?
Applicant 3 is Lucky Green Ladies, yes. And then the expectation, I mean, we don't have anything else in front of it. I would expect we get through 3 and 4 tomorrow, which is then Exit 10 LLC. Okay.
Can you, Renee, would it make sense to send that email out so the folks that aren't here will know to look at those 2? If they haven't already. I mean, I have to still, I have to look at one of them tomorrow,
Sure.
but it'll be done.
And
Yeah.
But tomorrow I may be late, Renee. Do you want me to send over a score and comments, or
So-
let me just wait? How do you want to do it? If I'm not,
So here's, I need to make sure that we're going to have quorum. So I know, Paul, you're going to be here. I believe Mike
Yep.
already accepted. He should be available because it's a Thursday, right? Michael, you're going to be late. Sandy, you're not going to be here, correct? Okay, Michael, what does your late look like?
8:30 maybe, possibly. It could be earlier. It might be 8:30.
Okay, but like an hour and a half at a minimum. Laura,
I'm
you able
available.
to?
Yeah.
Okay. Denise,
I will be here probably similar to this evening, driving and all that, but I'll be available.
okay. And then Mike Massini has indicated he will be here. There should not be any issue with that, but if he is not able to, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we're okay, right? Because the MRS is 9. Okay, we should be fine. We should have quorum.
So back to my question, Renee, do you want, because I'm not here, do you want comments and feedback, or do you not just wait?
If you have it, Michael, that lines up with the Excel, I'll be more than happy to read your comments
I
to
will.
the group.
I will make sure that at least, I'll make sure you have both comments for both, and hopefully I'll be here to talk about the second one.
Okay, let me ask this. Does anybody think that we would be able to fit in 3 in 2.5 hours? I don't think we can, but I'm just gonna throw it out
I
there.
was supposed to mute when I laugh.
I think there's no way we could do that.
Okay, that's what I thought
Thank
too,
you,
but I
Denise,
just
for
want to be
being the
clear.
voice of sanity.
Yeah. Using the current process, no. If we change things a little, maybe.
Well, the current, we've done this process for 2. I don't know that it would be fair if we didn't do it for the rest.
Is
So
there
we
a
only
way
have 3
that-
more to go.
Is there a way that rather than going line by line, that we could take a section and as a whole, and then people could have questions, comments?
I think that's fine if everybody's looking at it, sure.
It's just an idea. I you know,
Yeah, I've already sent you my questions that I had for Lucky Green Ladies. There's not many. I can have my exit 10 to you tomorrow. I do need to go back because I tried. Unfortunately, when I reviewed the last one, the Team Green one, it was all online because I didn't have access to a printer on vacation. So I've got to go back and make a list of my questions and comments
Okay.
there.
I mean, I don't see us getting to that one tomorrow, so I think that we're fine. You know, but again, since we don't have any sort of discussion from an applicant, that's going to save us some time. So potentially, I mean, I thought in the beginning anyway, it'd take us an hour and a half per applicant to have discussion. So we're actually, if you look at it, we're still kind of on time. I see you laughing, Michael.
Sorry, I'm glad I muted that.
Well, like I said, I mean, I
We're
anticipated.
kind of on time. We're just off like a whole day.
We're actually not, though. I mean, we bumped it from the first one and we got a bit delayed because of, you know, the things that we threw in at the last minute, but, you know, sometimes that's going to happen. So, we'll end up back on schedule. I mean, there is a chance that we could start Team Green tomorrow based on a 2.5 hour meeting, right? If we go through and provide comments.
Do we have a firm next meeting date after the tomorrow?
October 8th. I listed
Okay.
still date to be confirmed, but I haven't heard from anyone that it's not, it's a conflict. So speak now or forever hold your peace. I haven't posted an agenda for that one because I figured we would probably have to adjust the applicants and the things that we were going to do.
I have it in my calendar pending confirmation, so I'm available.
Okay.
I'm gonna sign off if that's okay.
Anyone else not available for the 8th? Because I can make that a firm date and shoot it out. Paul, I think we may have been waiting
Are
for
you saying
one of
Tuesday?
your
I'm sorry.
meetings.
That's October.
no, I think I gave you everything.
Okay, because this is next month.
Yeah, let me take a look here. I thought it was on our calendar already.
Did I put out there as
Yeah,
tentative?
we have it on October 8th at 7.
Okay. So then I'll take that from date to be confirmed to confirmed, and then I'll get an agenda out after tomorrow's meeting. I'm not going to do it now, just in case we have to tweak it. Okay, awesome. It's 9:34. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Was that Paul?
hey, I'm going to take
You
every
like that now,
opportunity
huh?
I can.
I was gonna say, Paul, you usually don't get votes like that, so take them.
I get none.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
Paul, I noticed that you always speak up when it's the motion to adjourn.
He's a man of leadership, Denise. A man of leadership.
I'm just trying to get to an end.
Yeah, I
know.
hear you.
Okay, Laura,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Sandy, Denise,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
And I also vote yes, and we are adjourned at 9:35 p.m. Thank you guys. See you tomorrow at 7 p.m.
Tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.